90 days, has some of you seen some of the worst personal warfare that you've had in the past couple of years? Raise your hand and let me show you. Okay, here's what happens. Every 4 years in the United States, there's a major election of sometimes the House and the Senate, but especially president and vice president. I've tracked this for many, many years, that there is an increase of spiritual warfare during those 4-year cycles. Here's what happens, number one. Now pay careful attention, because I'm going to prove this later on in the message. In fact, you won't see these stories on TV, but I'm going to tell the people stories today that very few people know about, and I'm going to use a few names, so you won't see that, but it is in this message. First of all, I have noticed that during those 4-year cycles, and Steve, you've been with Charisma a long time, you'll know this, that there are a lot of failures with ministers that happen right before an election year. You'll see that ministers that are noted, there begin to be things that are said or done, or accusations made or whatever, and the idea, I think, in my spirit, is that it affects the evangelical voters to distract them off of the focus of what they should be praying for and what they should be believing for. Are you still tracking with me here? And this happened, Steve, you know, it happened in 87, it happened in 91, 92, it happened in 95, 96. Now, I'm not going to name it, but they come in 3 cycles. There'll be 3 major ministries that there'll be something that will happen, and it makes national media. So I always started becoming interested in why is that taking place. And then I began to think about, what do people feel during an election year? There are spirits of confusion. There is the biggest release of lying spirits that there are. Both sides, by the way. There are seducing spirits, and there are principality spirits that are involved with this. Now, I'm going to read a verse to you that I read the other day in a message, but we're going to ask something about this verse. It's Luke chapter 4, verses 5 through 8. It's the temptation of Jesus. Then the devil, taking him up on a high mountain, showed him all the kingdoms of the world in a moment's time, and the devil said to him, all this authority I will give you, and the glory of them has been, for the glory of them, this has been delivered to me, and I give it to whomsoever I will. If you will worship me, all this will be yours. And Jesus said to him, get behind me, Satan, for it's written, you shall worship the Lord your God, and him only shall you serve. Now, I want to ask you a question. Was Satan lying? Was he making a lie to Jesus when he said, I can deliver the kingdoms of the world over to you? Now, what were the kingdoms of the world? One empire, Roman Empire. Roman Empire ruled Israel, Palestine, Syria, the whole Mediterranean area. So he's saying to Jesus, just submit to me and show me honor as the God of this world. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make you popular to where you will become the emperor of the Roman Empire. That was the offer here. So Jesus, as you know, looked at Satan and began to rebuke him. In fact, he rebuked him 3 different times. And because I said to myself, so why is Satan offering him the kingdoms of the world? Because if you have a kingdom, you're a king. And if you remember, the wise men had come and said, we've come to worship him who is born King of the Jews. So Satan already knew that this baby's position, Christ's position, would be that of a king. So now he says, okay, let's see if we can offer him another power or authority to change whatever this plan is for him to be a king here. And the amazing thing is this, Satan says he's going to make him a king because he has the authority to make him a king, because everything connected with Jerusalem was about the king. Jerusalem is the city of peace. It's the city of Melchizedek, the first king and priest of the Most High God. There was even a prophecy, and you can read about this in Matthew chapter 5:35. You can read about it in the book of Zechariah. There's a prophecy that talks about that how the king would come to Jerusalem. There's another prophecy that says the king would come riding upon a colt. All these predictions were fulfilled through Jesus. But here we go. Here's what I want to tell you. When they put the inscription on the cross at the crucifixion, Pilate in mockery said, this is Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews. So even up to his crucifixion, Satan is saying this, you didn't take my offer 42 months ago to be king. Now I'm going to mock you because everybody thinks you're a king. We're just going to make a fool out of you publicly. But here's what Satan didn't realize. You cannot tempt someone to be a king who is already a king. So how are you going to tell Jesus, I'm going to give you the kingdoms of the world, when the book of Revelation says the kingdoms of this world have become the kingdoms of our God and his Christ? And Jesus is going to rule for 1,000 years. And he knows this by the plan of God. So how are you going to tempt somebody to be a king that's already a king? How are you going to tempt somebody who helped create the world? Hey, how are you going to tempt somebody that has all power given to him both in heaven and in earth? You can't do it because Jesus knew who he was. He knew he was coming as a prophet to the people on the earth. He knew that he was going to be a priest in heaven for almost 2,000 years. But he also knew when I'm coming back, Revelation 19, I'm coming back, King of Kings, I'm coming back, Lord of Lords, to rule for 1,000 years. But this does beg a question that we must ponder, and that is simply this. Is it possible that Satan has some type of authority to raise up leaders on the world scene? And I believe the answer is yes. Ephesians 2:2, Satan is called the prince of the power of the air. These are demonic powers ruling in the second heaven or the upper atmosphere. 2 Corinthians chapter 4 and verse 4, Satan is called the god of this world that has blinded the minds of the people. Or we would say the god of this age. So now he's called the god of the world systems. He's called the prince of the power of the air. 1 Corinthians 2:12 says this, that we have not received the spirit of this world. And that word there is cosmos, which means the world systems, the systems that men rule. Ephesians 6:12, you know this one. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers, rulers of the darkness of this world and wicked spirits in heavenly places. So based on these things, we see that wickedness is connected to Satan, and Satan's rule of the world and the governments of this world is applied by the fact that he has some ability to place certain individuals or certain people in what we would call high government levels. Now, I said this the other night, I'm going to say it again, that when you look at the word principality, Ephesians 6:12, it's also used in several other places of the New Testament. It is the word arche, and it means the first or the chief or the primary one, the leading one. A prince spirit is a principality. A principality rules not just over a city. Those are lesser demons who are ruling over cities. They rule over empires. They rule over entire nations. America has a demon over it that's a prince spirit. Now, I want to tell you what it is. It's the spirit of pharmakia. And that's the word for sorcery in the New Testament. It's also a word used drug addiction. We are an addicted society. We are addicted to alcohol. We are addicted to drugs. Come on, somebody, help me preach this. And that is the spirit that this nation battles. All the fentanyl coming over, all the drugs coming over, addicted to a pharmakia demon. And that is mentioned in the word sorcery in the book of Revelation. That Greek word is pharmakia. Now, let me mention a couple things to you. I'm going to be going into some stories that may be new to you, but all of these are facts. Some of these I know personally by talking to individuals.